And this lesson we're looking at photographs, just basic landscapes. All the photographs are going to be bigger, more panoramic. So there's a lot to deal with that we can change to improve the photograph on. The first one is always composition. And the photographs I take are generally big panoramic views. I don't zoom in as much because I know I can get it home and put it in Photoshop and crop it and make 2 or 3 different paintings out of one photograph. These are bigger compositions that we need to crop to make it work better. All of them have way too much sky, too much foreground. There's generally something that draws me to take the photograph. And in this case, it's more in this area. Some of the yellow cottonwoods, the barns back here, a little bit of the distance. That's kind of my focal point. But there's a lot of nice stuff in this. The bigger cottonwoods over here are nice. I like the color in the foreground, some of the shadow pattern and dark and light contrast in that area. So there's a lot there. You can do 2 paintings here easily. And usually I can either make it more horizontal, more square, more rectangle. The first one I like, if I'm cropping this, is right in here. I want to include this small tree way to the left and then some of the foreground, not much of the foreground. And this gives me a square view. It's heavier on the right side. The smaller trees balance it on the left. I would probably turn this fence row of these nice light violet shrubbery, make it so it kind of meanders back into here, pulls you into the composition instead of just cutting off that bottom part. That would be one. There's a longer rectangle, a longer vertical. And I want to decide on each one what I'm going to get rid of. If I go more of a long horizontal, I'm going to be cropping a lot of the sky in the foreground. I can zoom in here, take off a little bit more. So I really am getting rid of half of the photograph. The top part and bottom part probably makes about half. And this is a real nice composition because I've included the bigger dark green trees over here. I would still turn these bushes in a little bit more. Not so that, again, they're kind of cutting off that corner down there. And then looking at the background, I want to get rid of these, the warm background. It's way too warm to stay back there. So let's get this a little bit grayer. I'm going to get a fairly muted blue here. So this is the equivalent of a blue and a little bit of violet, or alizarin crimson, to make a violet, more of a blue violet. And when I do that, now the yellow really jumps forward, because the yellow and the blue-violet are complements and they really separate. Actually, yellow-orange and blue-violet are complements. But anyway, some kind of violet, some kind of yellow. They're complementary and they really jar. They create a lot of tension, which creates more drama. So that blue-violet, yellow-orange, yellow-green trees really separate from each other, again, as opposed to that. It's just way too close. And I could do it even a bit more. I could come back and make it a bit more violet. But a lot of times I will put the violet down first and then the local color. And the local color is some kind of reddish orange that I would scrub into the violet to give it the local color. But the distance color, the color of distance, is blue or violet. Then the same thing with the trees. I want to change them in such a way that they read more of the light direction. So the shadow would be a little more definite and uniform. It doesn't mean I can't put the holes in there, but this is how I want to see these trees. More like that, with the light following definite shape and direction here. And I don't really care if my trees look like the trees in the photograph. Again, that's just a starting place. But that's how I want them to work. I know the sunlight is coming this way, so I'm going to have a lot of dark in these trees. Same thing with the dark green. If I can see most of it, and the lights, again, the lights just show the direction. That's a little too light, probably. But the front side of the trees in this photo have to be a dark. And in the photograph, we see way too much light. Too many little holes, too much light. The more solid and more definite I can make the tree, and then shape it the way I want to, the better. So simplifying it, giving it a better shape, and getting rid of the details makes it read a lot better. This one works pretty good in that the depth is there. A lot of the colors really cool off quickly as they recede. Here, there's a lot of different variations of composition here. A lot of verticals, some horizontals, but that makes a real nice. I'd probably cut this tree down, cut this tree on the right down a little shorter. It's because it doesn't need to dominate quite as much. Maybe have that come up just a little bit. That way it's not so dominating over on the right side, and it's balanced by the stronger color here. But there's nice lines of this path leading you back, and the shapes lead you back in here, and then the light picks up again, kind of zigzags around throughout the composition. But this can also be done as a horizontal or a more square composition. So there's a lot there to work with. And you can see it's backlit. The light is in front, so the shadows are on the back side. And the lights just kind of follow the form on the top. So we really want to emphasize and simplify these shadows on the big part of the trees. The side that faces the viewer is going to be dark. So where it looks complicated, like right in here, you can't tell what the light is doing. That's when I want to simplify these darks. Just get the overall shape of the tall vertical trees. They're a vertical shape going vertical direction, so they have to be dark, and then the lights just following the form. So I'm really showing light direction, simplifying the dark and the light, just to make it read better. And we want to get rid of all the stuff that makes it look complicated. Same thing with the hills back in here. I like the temperature. Gets a lot bluer back here, really blue back in here. But I want to get rid of a lot of the little darks on top of these hills. I'll either make it mostly dark with a few little light spots, or I can increase the size of the lights and get some smaller dark spots. But I want to get rid of all these little tiny shrubbery, little trees in the background. It just doesn't need to be in the background in a painting. Works great in a photograph, but not so much in a painting. We need to simplify that. This is another one. I can zoom in, and as I move the photograph around, I can come up with different compositions. That works pretty good. Pull it over a little bit, go over this way and include the road. The road pulls you back in there to the house. But I can still move things around in that these trees here are too small, or they're all kind of the same size, so I might want to get more variation in the size of these trees. And I can change the shape or direction of these mountains a little bit more if I want to change the direction of these hills a little bit. Play around with it to create a better composition than just what the photograph gives you. And that's a good way to do it. If you don't have Photoshop or anything, just put the photograph on the computer, and we all have computers, and I can just zoom in and pull the picture around different areas. So if you can't literally crop it, you can always just move it around, zoom in and move it around a little bit. What's nice about the cropping is I can create different shapes. So that works real well. This one also, it's a real nice one. It's too much midday, so the light's a little flat. But like the other ones, what I'm interested in is the creek, the trees, some of the lighter fields. So I'm going to move more over to the left and then increase the size there. And that works nicely. Now that water pulls you around the composition. And again, I would get those background hills. And I would want to cool them off just a little bit more. It has to stay back in the background. That might even still be too much green. Let's get a bit bluer. There we go. And if I block, when I'm blocking in the big areas of color, if I block this in for the mountains in the background, and then paint back into them, I get a little darker with the blue-green trees, a little bit of lighter yellow-green for the grass areas or the flatter areas. And it'll sink into this blue-violet and stay back in the distance. Same thing with back in here. I can go a little stronger blue for back in there, just to make that recede. You can see all the hills now recede back, and I can still go lighter for the flat areas and a little darker for the trees in the background. But the background stays back there now because it's blocked in with blue, blue-violet, blue-green, and the yellows and oranges up in here are a lot warmer. Plus, the darks up in here will be a lot darker than the darks back in there. But don't hesitate to change things on these photographs to make a better painting. Because we're not supposed to take the photographs literally. We need to look at them and decide what we can improve on to make it work better, to suggest what the light is doing better, and to suggest the depth and the distance.